Call this July 23rd meeting to order. George, you want to take roll?
Sure. Colonel Evans?
Here.
Mr. Grozen?
Here.
Mrs. Ludwig?
Here.
Mr. Miko?
Here.
Mr. Naso?
Here. Stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That brings us to Section 4, District Goals. We always state our goals because everything in this agenda and every vote that we make should support our two goals of student achievement and financial prudence. We're going to have a presentation later on where we can see that our financial prudence is being challenged. And, we've got a big challenge ahead of us with Mr. Kasich vetoing our safe harbor rules. So we're gonna have a presentation later on that of exactly what that means. And we'll stay focused on student achievement. Public comment, I don't have any. Always sad. Bringing us item 6, approval of minutes. We have the June 4th and June 25th meeting minutes to approve. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Duke, second by George. Any discussion? Nope.
Yes, I just wanted to thank Dawn for doing such a good job on the minutes all the time. You're welcome.
Thank you, Dawn. Take roll.
Mrs. Ludwig?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mr. Naso?
Yes.
Colonel Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Grozen?
Yes.
Yeah, motion carries. That brings us to item 7, which is the treasurer's report. And George.
All right, so item A, the financial report for the month ending June 30th, 2015. Exhibit A are the June financial reports for your approval. Item B, fiscal year 16 amended temporary appropriation. Exhibit B is an amendment to the temporary appropriation measure for fiscal year 2016 for your approval. Adjustments were made to the general fund from increasing the non-personnel budgets from 90% of last year's budget to 100%. This change will allow for enough budget to cover purchase orders and one-time expenditures that take place over the summer to prepare for the upcoming school year. Adjustments were also made to other funds based upon the grant awards. Item C, approval of new funds. Recommending to the board to adopt a new Fund 300 district-managed student activity account for the art department. This student activity account does currently exist, but under a Fund 200 student-managed student activities. Since these funds are managed by the art department, not students, they should be accounted for under Fund 300. Item D, transfer of funds. Recommending to close out inactive student activity accounts at the high school and to move the funds to the Fund 18 principal fundraising account to be used for district-wide initiatives. Also recommending from item C to transfer the art funds from Fund 200 to Fund 300. Item E, intra-fund transfers. This recommendation is to close out all the student activity accounts at Zellers and to move the funds to the same category accounts at Chapman, Kinsner, and Muraski. The amounts have been split based on the number of students being transferred to each school. And finally, item F, invoice order approval. Purchase order 2151587 for the ESC online learning program was entered at $22,486, and the invoice amount is $50,012. This is a new program that the curriculum department piloted last school year. It is for the students that would have otherwise left the district for virtual schools or homeschooling. The PO was estimated by the first semester enrollment of 10 students, and that enrollment tripled to about 31 students for the second semester. And purchase order 2152728 for university hospitals for physicals and drug and alcohol testing was entered at $500, and the invoice came back at $4,995. This was primarily due to the purchase order being underestimated for the number of employees tested. And that's all I have.
Well, I've got a couple of comments on that. First of all, that ESCC invoice for $22,000 for 10 students, about $2,200 per student.
Right.
Right? We lose about $5,000 to $6,000 for every student that leaves our district and goes to an online school.
Correct.
So to spend $2,000 to bring one back is a gain of $4, right? So this is a program that we really need to push, and we got to look after this because it's just something, and I know Richard's all over that, and he's got a plan for that. So that's a great, so we got to do that. Second of all, on the two other comments. One, I know on these invoices, I appreciate, Duke, your inquiries when these come out, and I know you always drill into them, and so it's appreciated, because we always get the answers, and it's good to know. And then the final.
George on his toes, you know?
You got to, and on the rest of these guys, but they're on their toes. The other thing to note is if you look at the monthly comparisons on this spending, is that you can see that in 2013, we spent $69.7 million. In 2014, we spent $64.5 million. And in 2015, we spent $66.7. So, I mean, that just shows that we are, we're doing our best to keep the expenditures low and, watching every penny and doing our jobs to do the best. And it has to do with decline in enrollment, of course, but we're taking out the expenses as we can. So I just want to, as I was looking through it, that was interesting to me. All right, and then that brings us to item 8, which is the superintendent's report, timely information.
Thank you, Carl. A couple items just as updates for the board and the community before we get to the agenda items. Just wanted to share with everyone that our new website is finally being rolled out, so we're very excited about that. It's going to be incrementally rolled out, so if you look at it right now, the main page, the district homepage, is updated to the new design. And the exciting piece of it, it's called a responsive design, meaning whether you're on your phone, your smartphone, a tablet, a desktop, it will change to fit the size of the screen that you're at. So it's a very nice layout. Take a look at it. We hope it's going to be a user-friendly and easy to navigate system for our community and our staff. And we're excited. And over the next, our goal is by August 10th to have all the pages rolled over. So once you go to the school pages, those will be done in the next few weeks. The other interesting thing is now the site will automatically translate to 10 to 15 different languages using Google Translate. So any of our families, ELL families that may speak a different language can still get our news and our website based on their native language if they so need that. So some nice new features. Also with the new site, we'll be able to run Google Analytics with it so we can exactly see which sites are getting the most hits and craft our communication program accordingly. So just wanted to share that. Also to share with and I'll summarize all this in an email to our parents next week, but as of August 1st, we are switching email systems. We are going from an iNote system, which we've been on, to a Gmail-based system, but what that means is all of the district staff's emails will change. So the system is first initial of your first name and your last name, so it'd be C. Ryba for me, and it's at scsmustangs.org. So that if you ever are looking for an email for one of our staff members, first initial, last name, and then at scsmustangs.org. And those will all be updated on the website as well, and we'll make that switch over on August 1st. The last thing before we get to the agenda items is just an update on and a reminder on our school calendar. Just a reminder that we do start awful early. Actually, in a little over 2 weeks, we will have students back in the building. August 12th, again, is the first day of school for our students in grades 1 through 9, as well as kindergarten orientation. August 13th is our first day for kindergarten students in grades 10 through 12, and then preschool will start on Monday, August 17th. Once again, the reason for this early calendar, this will allow us to end school in May 20th, 2016. Again, at the end of this school year, we will need to demolish Center Middle School behind us, get the site ready for the consolidation of Albion and Center into one middle school. So that is the reason for the early start, to give us a longer summer to make sure we're prepared for the exciting start of the 2016-17 school year. The other thing I'll be sending out to parents via email shortly, we should finalize this week, in the calendar, or could be in the calendar next year, are 2 additions that are new for our district. We will have, as has been noted, 5 one-hour early release days. We've got a document that's been completed to share specifically with all of our parents how that's going to impact them, pickup time, services. So we'll have that on the website, and we'll be sending that out to all of our parents. And then, as I mentioned in a previous board meeting, as a part of our options for calamity days, we are instituting a 2-hour delay option. And those would predominantly be used when road conditions are such where we couldn't open on time but would improve in 2 hours, or more specifically temperatures. When the wind chill is such that at 7 o'clock it's too cold, but at 9 o'clock we'd be okay. Again, we will have that detailed schedule finalized and out to parents within the week, so they can have that information, print it out, save it on their desktop. That way, should we ever need to exercise that option to keep school in session, parents will have that handy. With that, I'll move on to our agenda items. There's 2 items for your consideration here. The first is a Calamity Day Alternative Makeup Plan. And it authorizes the Calamity Day Alternative Makeup Plan, which is more commonly known as Blizzard Bags, in Exhibit C. And this is only for our half-day kindergarten program. As a reminder, for next year, we're adding 5 minutes to the half-day program. And that will give us between 7 and 8 extra Calamity Days built in. However, if we should go over those, we could use Blizzard Bags to make up 3 days rather than having to go into our contingency calendar days. So that is an annual authorization for your consideration. The second one, and this one requires a vote. It's a resolution to waive the career technical training for students in grade 8 during the 15-16 school year. So last year, there was a new law passed that said you have to offer career technical education. Well, typically in Strongsville, we look at what Polaris provides us, and that's a 10th through 12th grade, or 11th and 12th grade program. You have to start that in 7th grade now. We will have that program at the high school in the freshman year, starting with pre-engineering next year. We will have it in 7th grade with a new program called Design and Modeling that every 7th grader will have. However, we will not have a program next year for 8th grade. We need another year for the Design and Modeling program to build. So in 16-17, we'll have a Intro to Computer Science class in 8th grade. But we won't have that for next year, and that is why I'm requesting the resolution for the waiver for the career technical training for students in grade 8 for next year. Unless there's any questions, that requires a vote.
All right. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Motion by George, second by Duke. Any further discussion?
I just want to highlight that, again, this is a 1-year waiver. The program that Polaris is bringing in for 7th grade, I think is going to be exciting. It's a lot of hands-on. Mm-hmm. The idea is to have an overview of those different kinds of STEM programs, start to get young minds thinking about different avenues career-wise. This just gives us that extra year so that next year we'll have that program in 7th and 8th grade.
Mr. Grozen?
Yes.
Mrs. Ludwig?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mr. Naso?
Yes.
Colonel Evans?
Yes.
Motion carries.
The last item on the agenda on this section is looking at the state biennium budget and the impact on Strongsville City Schools. And I'm going to ask George to go to the podium and go through the initial parts of the presentation. Board members, you have the presentation in front of you. Members here in the audience, there are copies at the back table if you'd like to look through. And also, at the end of this, we'll be sending this out to all of our community members and families on our email group, should they want it. There's been a lot of talk lately. I know I've spoken to our local reporters, and articles have been written about the impact of the governor's decision on our budget and on the future of our district. But we thought it was important to go through some highlights of what we've been up against here in the recent years, what we've done proactively to have a successful future for our district, and the unfortunate predicament that this decision has put the future of our district in, but also looking at the next steps, where do we go from here? So hopefully this gives everyone a good foundation of what we've done, what this will influence us to do, and some next steps. So George, leave it up to you.
Thanks, Cameron. So as Cameron mentioned, we just wanted to give an update on Governor Kasich, the impact on how it affected us and the overall budget. The last-minute line item veto by Governor Kasich eliminated $100 million in state funding and negatively affected over 100 school districts. 28 school districts, including Strongsville City Schools, lost over $1 million, while in the same budget cycle, Ohio's Rainy Day Fund increased to $2 billion. What this means for Strongsville City Schools is a $3.6 million reduction of state-funded tangible personal property reimbursement, or TPP, beginning in school year 2017. In school year 2017, our loss is capped at $2.8 million, and the remaining amount will be reduced in school year 2018 for a total loss of $3.6 million. Since 2009, Strongsville City Schools has lost $7.8 million in total state funding, or 44% of our total state allocation. The reduction of funding ranks Strongsville City Schools in the bottom 7% in state funding for schools, ranking us 570 out of 610 districts. Our per pupil amount for state aid and TPP has decreased by $522 per student from $2,419 to $1,897. That loss of $3.6 million equates to about a 2.5 mil property tax levy. So on the next slide, as revenue declined throughout the years, Strongsville City Schools has managed by making difficult reductions, exploring efficiencies, and consolidating buildings. As Carl mentioned earlier, our annual expenditures in 2009 or in 2015 is significantly lower than years past. In 2009, our expenditures were about $74.8 million compared to this year, $66.7 million. That's a decrease of $8.1 million. And a couple examples of identified efficiencies are we changed our workers' comp to an individual retro-rated plan, which reduced premiums by 85%. And we also moved from a fully insured medical plan to a self-insured medical plan, which saves the district about $500,000 annually each year. And then also to offset revenues, we have sought out other avenues for funding. The Strongsville Education Foundation has held fundraisers to help fund technology initiatives. And in the last 2 years, we have sought out and received grants in excess of $250,000. Staffing, cost reduction. So to keep pace with the loss of revenue and declining enrollment, we have made tough decisions in the reduction of personnel costs. Since 2009, salary costs have decreased by $4.7 million, or 10.1%. Benefits have also decreased by $6.4 million, or 27.7%, while absorbing double-digit inflation to healthcare costs. And during that same time period, we have decreased positions. We have decreased 159 positions from 2009, from 914 positions to 755 positions in 2015. We've also managed our facilities. So due to the declining enrollment and less personnel, Strongsville City Schools has consolidated and eliminated buildings. We have eliminated 6 buildings and repurposed 1 building to save resource and maximize educational offerings. Examples: Allen closed in 2010, Zellers closed in 2015, Drake is scheduled to close in 2016, Albion and Center Middle Schools will be consolidated into 1 building, and then we're also eliminating 2 administration buildings and moving the administration, repurposing the administration to Zellers. So on the next slide is a summary chart of the district general fund revenues broken down by category since 2009. I want to focus your attention on the purple and green sections, which represent state funding. The purple is our state foundation, and the green is our tangible personal property reimbursement. As you can see, since 2009, the TPP has been progressively reduced each year until completely gone in 2018. During that same time period, all other revenues had stayed consistent, but the loss of state funding has decreased our total revenues. So at this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Cameron, who will give us a conclusion and next steps.
And George, if you can just do the clicker for me, if you would. You know, where we're at is George has kind of set the background foundation is we've been proactive. You know, when you look at school funding, you know it's a flat line based on the funding laws in the state. So you know what you're up against when you pass a levy and what kind of revenue you're going to bring in. And so we haven't been sitting around thinking, oh, what are we going to do when we run out of money? We've been proactively looking at how do we run an efficient organization? How do we reduce costs? How do we elongate the amount of time that we can use the funds that we have available to us? But we're getting to a point, especially as we'll kind of highlight in these next few slides, of how do we continue to do that when state funds continue to be taken away and diverted from our school districts? We can't continue to keep up with the reductions that we're seeing from the state. Just to highlight a few other points, As you can see on this slide, we've been focused on financial prudence. It's been proactive. We've reduced expenditures. And as you can see, when we talk about salaries and benefits, we've reduced our salaries and benefits from 2009, which were 90% of our budget. Now, let me just real quickly explain. I know that seems very high, but we are a service organization. And when you look at a service organization, the cost of human resources are the majority of your costs. So we have reduced that to 84% of our budget, which is a comparable number. When you look at the Solons, the Olmsted Falls, North Royaltons, Brunswicks, our area districts, 84% salaries and benefits, that is a comparable figure. So when we try to look at how are we doing in relation to our budget as we compare that to salary and benefits, we are right where we should be in terms of comparables. Also, looking at our salary, our packages that we offer, our salary is lower than Solon, our teacher salary is lower than North Royalton, and it's comparable to other neighboring districts. And the part that I look at is, as a former assistant superintendent for human resources and now in my current role, we want to attract the best candidates. Nobody wants a subpar teacher teaching their child. And the benefit that we have in Strongsville with our comparable salaries is when we offer jobs, people take our jobs. That's not true in other districts. In other districts, when teachers go and interview, they job shop. And they'll say, let me see what the other person says or what the other district says, and I'll get back to you. We don't have that in Strongsville. Because we're a great school district, because we offer comparable wages, we attract the best and we retain the best. And also, as the last bullet point said, we haven't had a new operating levy since 2007. But we need to put that into comparison of it's just not been an even playing field since 2007. As that bullet point states, we've lost over $7 million in state funding, and we've had to address increases of inflation. So again, when you look at a flat revenue stream and also losing funding due to the state changes in funding as well as inflation, we've made some tough decisions, as George will go to the next slide for me and share, that we've made some tough decisions so we could be in the place where we're at right now. As we've talked about before, we've closed buildings, we've consolidated buildings. We could have easily retained some of our staff when we've had these reductions, but we've reduced our staff along with our student populations. Our class sizes are better, but our class sizes are still large in some of our buildings. I know our high school classes, we have some classes that are 30 plus still. And so we're doing a better job, but we reduced staff to help be proactive with our budget. We've utilized combined purchasing powers. We've worked with our associations to restructure insurance plans. We've alleviated a lot of additional costs in insurance through the Affordable Care Act based on some taxes and Cadillac plan additional fees that we would be charged based on those changes to the plans that we've worked through. And we've all done that without impacting our programming and our student achievement. But here's where we're at now. We can't continue to move forward, can't continue to make the necessary cuts without having a negative impact on some aspect of our operation. And what concerns me the most is we've worked too hard and we've worked too long to take a step back. We all were here years ago when we've had to make those difficult cuts and take a step back in our progress. We've got great momentum in our district right now. And as we talk about there, and it's in bold print on the side, we can't do it without impacting our educational program. By educational program, I mean the resources we have for our students, the technology we have for our students, the AP classes that we have for our students, the foreign language, the honors program. Students want to come and be a part of our school because of the options that we offer and the education that they receive here. And those are things that I'm not willing to sacrifice. And we need to find ways to keep those to attract our students and retain our students in our district. And that also means facility maintenance. We have this wonderful opportunity with our bond issues to re-identify our district, to revitalize our district with a brand new middle school, upgraded elementary schools, and upgraded high school. But what that means is, what are we going to do in the future years to maintain those buildings? What are we going to do to have a plan to continue to upkeep the maintenance plan and not be in a position 5 to 10 years from now saying, well, how are we going to replace this HVAC unit? Or what are we going to do with the potholes in the parking lot? Or, oh my gosh, all of our Chromebooks are now ending the lifespan, and how are we going to replace them? We can't put ourselves in a situation where we're back in this situation where we can't maintain the program we have, and we take a step backwards. So we've got to decide what we're going to do about it and how we're going to move forward with the budget cuts. And we've got a few next steps that we'd like to suggest for consideration. First of all, I don't think it's time to just take the medicine and swallow it of what the governor has decided to do. There is a mid-biennium budget review that will happen, and I think we need to continue, as this board has already done a wonderful job of as to advocate for equitable funding for all schools. I don't think it's our responsibility to say, well, why did this school get this much and why did we take a hit? But all schools should be equitably funded that meets the best needs of their students, and it shouldn't be put on the district's shoulders just because there's some algorithm that says we're wealthy, that we should put it on our taxpayers to foot more of the bill that should be the state's responsibility. We also need to continue to look at increased efficiencies and look at potential savings. George and I will continue to work with every department. We're going to start, as I talked to the board earlier, but departmental reviews to look at saying where can we put cost savings measures under each department to save dollars to help defer the reductions that we're receiving from the state. As a part of the plan, the fruition of that will be in October of 2015, we will come to the board with a cost reduction plan. We're going to coordinate this with George's 5-year forecast to kind of show here's option A is if we keep on in the same path we've been, here's option B, which would take a look at implementing some of the cost reductions that will be a part of this plan. So we'll be working on that in the next 3 to 4 months, have that for the board to consider as we go to the October meeting. As was talked about earlier, we also need to take a look at how do we keep our Strongsville students in Strongsville schools and how do we attract increased enrollment. So the first bullet talks about our students that are going outside of our district for virtual schooling. There was a PO in George's report that talked about, and I don't know if we've promoted it, but we do have a virtual school that we run in collaboration with the Educational Service Center. What that means is you can be a Strongsville City School student. You can get your education through an online program that is overseen through the ESC in collaboration with us, and you can graduate with a Strongsville High School diploma. And just to look at some figures that George put up or shared with me earlier today, we get X amount of dollars for students that stay in our district. And based on that, when students leave our district, we pay out more than we take in. So for that bullet point, if a student stays in our district, we get from the state a little over $1,600 for that student to stay in our district. However, if they leave our district and go to an ECOT or an Odella or any other virtual platform, we are paying out over $7,700 for that student. So again, that's a net difference of $6,000. So we will be targeting, now we don't have a huge number of students that go to virtual academies. It's about 115 students last year that went to virtual academies. But we are continuing to communicate and we'll be working with those families to let them know here's a great option where if the traditional brick and mortar school does not work for your child, which it doesn't work for every child, here's an option where you can still be a part of our school district, you could still take part in our extracurricular and co-curricular activities, and you can graduate with the Strongsville City Schools diploma. And so we'll be working on that to ensure we can retain the majority of our students that are looking at that educational option. The next bullet point is we need to explore options for an open enrollment plan. We don't have an open enrollment plan here in the district, and the reason we haven't is because in previous years we haven't had the room. But what I'm looking at is after the 15-16 school year, once we open up the new middle school, once we close Drake, once we get students settled in our new structure of seeing what kind of room we have in our buildings, and can we have an open enrollment plan where students in neighboring districts could come to our district. Again, they would bring their state funding dollars with them. But again, looking at options for open enrollment. Brunswick has open enrollment, Columbia Station has open enrollment, most of our area districts do. Again, another option to continue to have our enrollment up, and again, for the purposes of this discussion, to increase revenue dollars that we're getting from the state. And finally, the last piece of the plan is we do have to look at how we are going to generate operating funds to keep us moving forward. We do have a renewal levy that is coming up that will need to be placed on the 2016 ballot, and we'll be talking with the board in the near future so you can make your decisions as to when that needs to be placed on the ballot, but also taking a look at the inclusion of a potential new operating levy. So as George finalizes his 5-year forecast in October, that will give some clarity to the timing of those decisions, but those are our next steps and what we'd like the board to consider in the future, and George and I are open to questions or feedback at this time.
I'll be happy to go first.
Okay, George.
I'll be happy to go first. Disappointed doesn't even begin to say how I feel about Governor Kasich's decision. Upset, disappointed. But I guess if we really want to talk about school funding, I think that there was a comment that was made by one of Governor Kasich's staff. And he referenced Strongsville specifically, because we're a very proactive board. Thank you, Cameron, Carl, Richard, Jane, for going down to Columbus and speaking out. But the comment was made, and I'm paraphrasing, well, Strongsville, they can afford more taxes. Well, let's just be absolutely 100% clear on how state school funding works. It's two parts. And Governor Kasich and his staff have neglected, not anything else, but neglected to educate or simply say the truth. You have your brick and mortar bond money, buildings that slowly go away that you have to maintain. Warm, dry, safe. That's been our mantra for the bond issue from the very beginning. And then you got your operating money. The state funds school districts in two ways. With reimbursement money per student, our tax dollars going down to the state and that state money coming back. They control that amount of money coming back to us into different districts. But they also control the amount of money going into brick and mortar. The building that you're in right now is well over 100 years old. Center Middle School is well over 100 years old. We have buildings that fall apart. We passed a bond, so the taxpayers in this town have already paid more money so that our children, our community can have better schools and we can retain better property values. They promised us 7%, and an article a couple weeks ago saying the Ohio Schools Facility Commission is about that close to going bankrupt. Thank you, another unfunded mandate. But we flipped the bill for our new middle school, renovating a high school, and doing some critical needs elementary buildings. When you go into Cleveland, when you go into some of these lower economic situated communities, they don't pay for their buildings. They pay for about 10% of every dollar. So if we want to talk about state funding, Mr. Kasich, and staff, let's put both of those numbers together and let's have a discussion about how much money you give us on a daily basis so that we can educate our children. But how much of our money, you give away to other communities to build buildings, to have warm, dry, and safe, when one of the more wealthy communities and a board who's worked hard at lowering its costs has to spend our own money to shut down a building that's over 100 years old. It fires me up because this board has worked incredibly hard. Our superintendent has worked incredibly hard to pinch pennies, to work hard at saving money. And we basically got a slap in the face. And that's how I feel about it. Because it was a line item veto. It was not an edit to his budget that did not come through the House and Senate. This was a bill that came through both sections of legislature to his desk, and he line item vetoed. There's more money going to charter schools, privately owned businesses that educate children that have lobbyists, than taxpayers' dollars for the kids in this community. And this is just my opinion. The heart of any community is its educational system. People want to come into Strongsville because of our school district. We need to still attract parents, grandparents to come into this community to buy our older homes, reinvest in our community. And one way they do that is because of our schools. So disappointed is not even the beginning of it. But school funding is two parts, Mr. Kasich, Governor Kasich, not just one.
Here, here, George. I think you said that very well. I'd like to add to what George said just a little bit, two things. Number one, there was an editorial in the Post last week, I think it was, from a frequent letter writer. And some of the stuff that he said was correct and some of it was not correct. Our declining enrollment is not, as some people have imagined, because of our strike a couple years ago. It's, I'm not trying to drag up bad laundry, but it's because of our changing demographics in the city, where we have, our population is aging and there's less younger children coming into our system. The second thing I'd say is that, like George, I was extremely angry, disappointed, after we lobbied very successfully to our legislators, our representatives, Davila and Patton, to get the information or get relief within the budget for the funds that were in jeopardy because of the governor's original budget submission. Then he line item vetoed, as George has said. And what I would say to you, as a lifelong conservative, I would not, if I had to do over today, I would certainly not vote for Mr. Kasich. And I would tell you that if you're as upset as I am with unresponsive government, then I would solicit and ask you to please, anybody out there, write a letter. Write a letter, make a phone call, get a hold of Mr. Davila, Mr. Patton, the governor's office, and tell them how upset you are, if you are as upset as I am, with this ridiculous development, as George said, in the total funding that Strongsville sends to Columbus and gets back from Columbus. It's gotten to a point where we're just transferring the burden from Columbus to our city, and without any relief from the mandates. We don't have anybody telling us less to do from Columbus or from the Department of Education. So if they want us to run our own schools, fine, then get out of our business. Otherwise, give us the money that we have deserve and our kids deserve, because it's fundamental, as George said, to the house values in our city, and it's just not fair. So I don't mean to be whining. I'd love to go down there and take them on face to face, whatever method was appropriate. But, we need your help. All the citizens, we need your help. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Duke. Jane?
Oh, nothing. This is very upsetting, and we just need to keep the heat on, as George and Colonel Evans have said. So if you need help with what to say or what to do, contact us. We can certainly tell you the words to put in that might make a difference, since we did have some impact with the senators and Mr. Davila. But again, there's nothing else to be said other than we just have to keep applying pressure, and it's not over. So, and maybe he'll not be our governor anymore, and we can even have a better.
So I just want to reiterate and perhaps repeat some of the comments. But as our treasurer George pointed out, next school year the TPP cut is $2.8 million. To put that perspective for the whole picture, we currently receive approximately 3.6. So that's what we're looking at. $3.6 million is 5% of our budget. Duke, in an earlier email, asked us, what are we going to do? What strategy are we going to have? Are we just going to roll over? This board is, I don't think, is in any position to roll over. I think we have to plan for 5%. We know what that target is, and we're going to work diligently and we're going to work passionately to do everything we can to reduce that 5%. We talked about working, you hate the trite phrases, working smarter, not harder, things like that, but we are going to have to do those departmental reviews. We are going to have to see what kind of savings we can come up with to approach that, but also do things like we outlined today that said, our we currently have a reduction of close to $1 million in students who, for whatever reason, choose to go to another school, whether that's a virtual school, whether that's a charter school, whether that's any other school. Let's have that conversation, because if we can address their needs, address their concerns, it swings easily back to our favor. And I don't think we can get that entire $1 million, but I certainly would think a target of a third to a half is reasonable, and that's going to help address that issue. We do have 1 year to advocate very strongly for our needs with Columbus. Cameron discussed the mid-biennium budget. That's one avenue. If that appears, it may or may not. Veto override, the good news about a veto override is there's no time limit on that. That override can occur at any point in time. And then ultimately the House and the Senate can certainly choose to have a brand new law and vote on it and pass it to address the funding in one way or the other. And then the last thing I think we can do, one thing that is in the current budget, is a commission to address education funding. One of the most difficult things we've seen year after year for the past 8 years is we attempt to solve the education funding problem in Ohio in the 5 months before the budget. And it's an awful way to do that, to try to address all the different needs of urban schools, suburban schools, rural schools, all under the pressure of getting a budget agreed to and passed by June 30th. So this one said, let's have a commission and start working on that now. So I know this board and this administration will be invested in that and will be part of that, because again, we've been through this cycle before. The TPP reimbursement disaster has occurred before, and it's occurred again. But I do think that's a very tangible thing we can do. I'm sharing with the board and the public. I've had conversations in the last week with Tim Picana, who happens to be the treasurer in Solon. And you know, sometimes it's good to know what other school districts are experiencing. Our maximum TPP cutoff is $3.6 million. Solon's is over $8 million when it's all said and done. So they're in the same straits we're in and much worse. But Treasurer Picana is also the president for the Coalition for Fiscal Fairness in Ohio, which is there's no other way to put it. It's a lobbying organization of member schools who are affected by this tangible personal property tax. So I've asked Tim to send us information on that organization, share it with the board and the administration, and it's something to consider. It's frustrating because on the one hand, we're taking tax dollars to pay lobbyists to advocate, but that seems to be the way the world works right now. And if that's what we have to do to restore that $3.6 million, then we're going to have to do that. But those are some tangible things that I think we can do. If you go to, Duke mentioned writing letters. It is extremely important to write letters to both Representative Davila and Senator Patton. Solon has a nice boilerplate letter on their website. I would recommend you go to that. You can either use that as a guide or just change the names, because their representative isn't Davila. But the more names, the more letters we can get out there, the more information we can get out there.
Richard, excuse me, could we get that letter and put it on our website?
Yep.
Absolutely.
Modify it?
A brand new website.
Yeah.
Brandon, go.
Absolutely, we can do that. But I think those are practical things we can do to continue. But again, as Duke said, what are we going to do? We're going to plan for the worst, and we're going to work damn hard to improve that condition. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Richard. I'll just add a couple of things to that. One, it was very surprising that we got line item vetoed like that after the House and the Senate, and one person in Obama-like fashion who thinks they know more than the rest can, with the stroke of a pen, legislate and create their own laws by single line vetoing what we saw. I went through the formula today. There was a there was a webinar today by OASBO, and there was a webinar on the state budget and the impacts, and they went through, and I was watching it. And I looked at the calculation, and at first I thought, well, we should do pretty good with this calculation, because there were bonuses in there for the third grade, for every student who passes the third grade. It's like, well, all our students did. There was a bonus in there for, in the calculation for graduation rates. I'm like, well, we got a great graduation rate. It's like 98%. 100%, we get 100% in the third grade. We've got 98% graduation. Transportation, for transporting beyond the limit of the limit, because we move all our students that need it. We do that. So we should be doing pretty good. But then the kicker came in. I looked. There's a thing called the State Share Index, which once again, because we're deemed a wealthy district, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm not feeling so wealthy today. If you look around, and I bet you a lot of people listening, like, I'm wealthy? Yeah, really? Like, okay, maybe I don't have to stop drinking this generic pop. But, so that our state share index of that, we get 13% of those bonuses. So even though the bonuses are like $2,000 a student, $1,200 a student, we get like 13% of that. So once again, it's another component, just like when we're building our buildings and we get a 7% reimbursement. We got the state share index, and it's just, in the webinar, I said, how do we challenge that? Like what, and their question was there a math calculation? I'm like, no, you've misclassified. You can't assume that just because we take care of our homes that everyone's wealthy, where everyone's sitting on. There's a lot of people in this community who take assistance and need assistance and get it because they've earned it. And, I don't know how this calculation works, but it's just not right. And then, as we talk about with Davila and Patton and Mr. Kasich, there's some unfunded things, some unfunded mandates that just need to be addressed. And, we have one where we have, certain high-need students, right? We're going to take care of every student. We're giving them the education they deserve, and they just need it. And they need additional money. We have about 17 students that we pay around $750,000 because we can't meet their needs. It's been litigated that we can't meet their needs, so they go to special schools, okay? And so we spend about $750,000 on those students. Well, the state is supposed to reimburse us for every dollar over $25,000. Well, you know what? Once again, they apply that thing, and we get about 15% of the money on that. So that whole process, it ends up being a funding hit to us for about $600,000. And that's just an unfunded mandate. I mean, we're doing exactly what we're supposed to do. The state is supposed to reimburse us, and they don't, because they deem us wealthy, so we get a prorated share of that money as well. It's just, just one thing after another, and you can go through your budget, and you can buy paper better. We buy our diesel. We do a good job with that. We go through, and our teachers, we've got that ratio where it belongs. We don't want to be any lower than 84, 85%, because that's where the best districts are, right? We want the best teachers for the best kids, so we don't want to go. We're not going bargain shopping for teachers. That's not what we're going to do. And you do all these things, and you do all the right things. We got the momentum with the new buildings going on, where our testing scores are through the roof. We're doing everything we're supposed to do, and then we get this. So I'll stop complaining, but go out, contact your council, contact Mr. Davila, contact Mr. Patton, contact Mr. Kasich. We'll put boilerplate letters on our thing. Send these things. Just say, this is ridiculous. And we just, the more we get out, the better we'll be.
We're not done fighting, but we need your help.
That's all I got.
Well, thank you, everyone, for your feedback. And as we said, throughout the next few months, we'll continue to update the board at our regular meetings and work sessions with where we're at in terms of our next steps for the plan. With that, let's go to, I'll have Mark Donnelly come up for Business Services and Technology Report. Mark?
It's a good screensaver for you to think.
Yeah.
It's a school situation.
Okay, tonight, it's kind of hard to follow up a kind of downer of a report about our funding.
Show us something good, Mark.
However, since we're now using Google Analytics to see how often people go to the website, please check the webpage out under the construction updates and see how many people actually visit. But all the reports I do at each board meeting or every other, once a month board meetings, after we're done, those all get posted to our website under the construction updates. So you can see all these reports in a PDF format on the website. But just to show you where we're at on some of our construction right now. Middle school update. This is the shot from behind the school, looking at the courtyard. The walls are going up. Things are going really well at the middle school. We're on schedule. A lot of workers out there. A lot of brick and mortar going. Here's the narrative of what we're actually doing, and some of the things, maybe this is a week or so old, so might be beyond some of these things. Footers at the east curtain wall are complete. Actually, all the footers around the entire building, foundations are in. Interior wall masonry is ongoing. Exterior walls for music rooms is ongoing. I got a shot from some of the music rooms coming up. Second floor masonry is ongoing, and also the second floor is almost complete masonry. They're about to pour the decking, or put the decking on and pour the floor and start the third floor of the building. That floor is going to be massive. When you're on a roof of the third floor, you will be looking down at the gym. Duct installation is ongoing. Light gauge studs are being installed for soffits, gym trusses, and ductwork painting. It says near completion here because that's a little bit old, because I think it's complete now. The shot I got yesterday, it's 100% done. Ceiling unit heaters and gyms are being installed. Door frames are being installed in the first level of the 6th grade classroom wing. Joist and decking installation is underway for the 3rd level, which means on top of the 2nd floor. Like I said, they're going to start pouring the 3rd level. This is a shot from the top of the gym, just looking at some of the foundations. This serpentine wall we see at the bottom of the page here, that is the back side of the cafeteria going out to the back courtyard behind the school. It'll be an interesting area that you've got to see the way it's going to be designed. It goes down into a little bit of a dip inside the building there. It's going to be real neat the way it's going to look. This is standing in the 6th grade hallway near the first community center, community learning area, looking all the way down the entire length of the building. I just thought it was a neat shot to show that things are coming together. They got all kinds of pieces and parts going in, and workers everywhere working real hard. This is the vocal music room, beginning to take shape. You know, they obviously got some more work to do here, but it's kind of neat to see these areas drawn out on the map, and now they're, actually walls are going up, door frames going in, things like that. Second floor masonry work, you can see, is almost completely done on the outside. That first floor looks like the windows are kind of crunched down, and then the second floor has got much bigger window openings in it, but it's the same size classrooms, just different size windows. This is a gym. Walls painted. You see the up above the green paint on the ceiling with all the metal, and it's just got a really nice look to it. I think everybody's going to enjoy going to the gym when it's finally done. What's next at the middle school? 3rd floor decking and masonry walls, brick veneer near the main office. The brick veneer is the fallback work they do when they're waiting on structural steel to be put down, so the bricklayers go and do brick veneer. When they can go back to the main masonry work, the concrete blocks, they take on that again. Eventually, the brick veneer is a key critical path item. Getting brick veneer on and the windows in helps us get the building enclosed. So that's something they are pushing. And even though it's July, they're still worried about the snow flying in November and making sure we get the building enclosed so we can do the interior finishes so we can be open in May. They continue to frame out the classrooms. The installation of mechanical systems, plumbing, HVAC will continue. Finishes will begin in August in the main office and the kitchen. High school. There's a lot going on at the high school. I don't know if anybody's been anywhere near the high school, but it's huge. The whole building looks like it's under construction when really it's just half the building. But this is outside the athletic end of the building where they've installed new chiller units. These are all brand new right here. That's going to help with that end of the building. So what are we working on? Painting in the corridors is almost complete in the 700, 800 wing. Corridor lighting is being installed. It's done upstairs. They're working on it in the 700 wing. Ceramic tile in the group restrooms is nearly complete. Rubber tile installation is almost complete upstairs in the 800 wing. I'll have a shot of that. The 700 wing, they got a lot of work to do in that, but that will be ready in 3 weeks for school. Gypsum board ceilings and soffits are installed in the corridor and all the corridors. Sprinkler heads throughout the entire building. The $83,000 change order we approved a few months ago, those sprinkler heads have been installed throughout the building. They had a rough estimate of 1,700 sprinkler heads. The number is less than that. I don't have an exact count, but we have completed that work, so the building is 100% sprinkled and it's safe. Painting at stairwells is complete. Floor tile is going in. And this is on the back side of the auditorium. For years, people have complained about the Spalding block walls behind the auditorium. You will never see those Spalding walls again. They will be completely covered over. This, I'm standing in the same spot for this picture and the next picture. That used to be the entrance into the guidance area and assistant principals, as you can see on the wall. And I was looking, say, this direction. Well, I turned about 45 degrees, and there's the new entrance into the guidance area.
I thought we just blocked them in there.
No, but
Keep working.
it's just this example of the kind of work that you see walls coming and going, and they want to put up a wall, they do it quick. The block walls, et cetera, are, they've done the same thing going down the side hallway as well. They used to have an entrance that is completely blocked over. They moved down, knocked the blocks out, and they got a new entrance. All part of the redesign of the guidance area, assistant principal office area, and they'll have conference rooms, a much more usable, efficient space. This is Aux 1 gym. The walls have been completely painted. The floor, that's simply plywood they put down on the floor to protect it while the lifts are in there when they're getting up above and doing some of the sprinkler work, et cetera. They have not replaced the lighting yet, and this will be under construction through December. That in part of the 100-300 wing. But there is work going on, and some of the paint, it's just brighter in there with the way the paint's been put on the walls already. It's looking good. We have a caulking going around the entire outside of the building for certain panels. There's certain water issues, intrusion issues that we are addressing. This gentleman here is in the middle of caulking between the panel, where the way they interlock. And the hole in the wall right there is not anything he's involved with, but that is part of the elevator installation for the elevator to go up to above the auditorium area. Obviously, that will be covered over. That's not an entrance to the elevator. This is part of the construction process for the elevator. This is a shot of the 800 hallway. The new floor tile is down. The ceiling tiles are in. The lights in. New doors are on. There's still a lot more work to do. We have to put hardware in the doors. You see, where our door handle or lock should be is not included just yet. They're working on it. A lot of cleaning we got to do. And we're getting the custodial crew lined up to start gearing up for those rooms and get ready. We'll be on it next week, hot and heavy. And as they work through the 800 wing, the 700 wing hallway tile should be done by next Friday, and we'll be hot and heavy in that area as well. This is a 600 wing, the workroom at the very end of the hallway down where all the rooms come together. Very large area. It's going to be the teacher's workroom. Just showing you some of the stuff they've already started putting furniture. In fact, most of the furniture is already back in the 600 wing classrooms, so they're getting set up, and we're just getting ready as much as we can in certain areas for school because we'll have a tight timeline on the 700 and 800 wing. So what's next at the high school? Finish all the flooring in the 700 wing, basically finish 700, 800 wing. They're going to be going crazy the next 3 weeks. Complete the ceiling tile installation, install the technology packages, the network gear and the wireless access points that are going in each room are just being installed this week and next. They ran the wires, it's just the network equipment itself. The access points are just arrived at the end of last week, so they're installing all that now. Complete the roofing work in the occupied areas. They'll move over to the construction areas in late August and September, over top the auditorium and over top the 100-300 area, the roofing work that needs to be done. They will finish the window replacement in occupied areas. There's an awful lot of windows that are replaced. About 90% of the 700, 800 wing is done. They are working on getting a few pieces, angle cuts, et cetera, window pieces. They're on their way. There may be an issue where we have to put in some temporary glass in a couple of windows, but that cost, all that is on the contractor. They're going to do it, and when the real glass gets here, they'll install the glass after hours to not impact school. And we're doing a punch list walkthrough from the 700, 800 wing on August 5th to see what items that we still need to address to get ready for school. A lot going on. Any specific questions regarding construction update at the high school and the middle school?
I have one.
Sure.
And this is a hot issue throughout the city, and especially the schools as well. The parking lot and the driveway. Is there any patchwork going to go on? Everything's going to wait till construction's completed? What's the plan for the paving of the parking lots and drives?
The construction paving will take place at the high school next summer. Any patching that we need to do just out of our own maintenance budget, we can handle it as required. I'm not aware specifically of any really big dangerous potholes right now, but if there's things that need to be addressed, I'd be happy to take notes and make sure that we address all those before school starts.
Okay.
It would be simply getting truckloads of asphalt and have our grounds maintenance guys take care of that patching. Knowing that those areas would be patched and completely redone a year from now, we can handle that
Are you restriping any of the lots or anything, or?
Yeah, our maintenance crew actually is restriping now.
Okay.
Treasurer's office closing out the books, and we're setting up purchase orders to make sure we count for things the right way. We are a little slow on getting some POs out there, working with the maintenance department. But now that we have those released, they've purchased paint and they are going around striping. I think if you notice the striping in the board office parking lot has already been done.
Yeah. Thank you.
One thing that the taxpayers of Strongsville could be proud of is when we originally had the bond and we created our budgets for both the high school and the middle school, we worked very hard with GPD, our architect, Hammond Construction, and Dana is here, and RFC, our owner's agent. We were able to design bid packages that were easy and affordable and attractive for contractors to want to come to Strongsville and work on our buildings. With Hammond's help, we were able to save millions, literally. We thought it was going to be a certain amount of money. Those bids came in less. And to specifically address, one of my main concerns for the high school was what I call the loop road, the road that goes in from Lund and goes out from Lund. In our original design, we weren't really doing much to that road, but through incredible management by Hammond, by GPD, by the administration, we were able to save enough money and do more of that work, do a more in-depth cut of that. So yeah, that was definitely some of the things that I've received as well, Jane. Some of those giant potholes, what are you gonna do? Because the reality is, a bond is a mortgage. And what we do in these buildings has gotta last 30 years. I do wanna just get on my political rant for just one more minute, and you guys are gonna have to put up with me for at least the next 6 months on this one. The work that you see in those slides, especially in the high school, cannot happen in our brand new middle school. The maintenance on these buildings, and I will be, since I have come from that industry, I will stand up on this desk and start yelling really loud. When we start making cuts, if we have to, that's not gonna be a one. We lose the life of our parking lots when we don't seal them. We lose the life on our mechanical systems when we don't maintain them. The maintenance of these buildings is not gonna be a dollar we're just gonna throw away. And also the programs for our children aren't gonna get thrown away because of this decision that Kasich decided. Every dollar that you see in that picture, our taxpayers paid for. You go to another town and 10 cents of their tax dollars go into renovating their buildings. 90% comes in from the state. I will continue to remind everybody in this town that we are saving millions of dollars with the construction of that middle school. We are pulling every 6th grader from our elementary buildings to that building. That building will be a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade building that we can be proud of for the next 50 years. We're closing down, inconveniencing taxpayers, parents, and children, because we're removing, and I'm not trying to play the bleeding heart, this is the 2nd elementary building in my neighborhood that my children, that I had to close down, my kids were supposed to go to. And we're doing it because we're trying to be good stewards of taxpayers' dollars. So again, you guys are gonna have to put up with it because I'm gonna repeat this over and over and over again. We've done a good job. Mark, you've done a great job. And this whole thing's gonna save us money. Someone else just pulled the rug out from underneath us. Thank you.
Mark,
Yes.
I just have a couple questions for Dana while we have him here.
Yes.
On time?
On time.
Ahead of time?
On time.
On time? Under budget?
And nobody told me school was starting early, by the way.
Under budget?
Under budget, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll be ready.
All right, get us back on time.
Okay, back on time. Item 2 under business services tonight. I'm asking the board to consider the purchase of 5 new buses. We pretty much we need to buy 5 buses each year to maintain our fleet. The total cost $439,355, bid out by the Ohio Schools Council. We have a transportation for non-public student. We want to declare a certain school, a certain student impractical because of the time and distance it requires, and taking a bus out of our other transportation routes would hurt the district and other students. Item 4, pupil transportation agreement with Suburban Transportation Services for special needs students. This is a contract that, based on IEPs and other needs of the students, it ranges on how many transportation routes we got to run, but it's something that Suburban is very helpful to us, and they're very sensitive to kids' needs, and can handle things that we're not set up for. And item 5, service contract for data backup services. Our network department has to back up data between our emails, between our just student files, employee files, different data that we have as a district. There's a certain amount, I believe it's almost 5 terabytes worth of data we back up each month. When we go completely away from Domino 1, Domino 2, and Domino 3, our iNotes email system, there will be a chunk of that data we no longer have to back up, and our services for this could come down because they bill us by the amount of data that actually gets stored. But for the next year, next 9 months anyway, we'll probably have about the same cost, so we do have to approve a contract for data backup services. And item 6, we have a discussion item about cell tower lease extension. I want to provide some details, some information to the board, and then open up the floor for whatever comments or questions, or give some direction on whether we want to extend the cell tower contract. Just as a matter of history, back on September 6, 2010, Strongsville Board of Education entered into a contract to lease space to Clear Wireless LLC for 5 years with 5 renewal periods, each totaling 30 years. At the end of each of these 5-year periods, the district gets a 15% escalator in the amount that applies to the rental rates. So we do get increases, what basically amounts to 3% a year, but every 5 years they apply 15%. Construction of the tower was completed in 2011. Shortly after that, AT&T signed on as a co-locator. Our rent revenue is broken out in 2 parts. We receive $1,500 a month from the tower owner, basically for the space, the land they're leasing from us. The second part is 50% of all co-locator revenues. And since we only have AT&T on that tower, the rental revenue from that is like $14.19.95 a month. That's our 50%. So we receive about $29.19 a month in rental revenue, right around $35,000 a year. Next year, sometime we'll do our 15% increase because the rent didn't start until construction was complete in 2011, so 2016 we'll get our escalator. The tower is now owned by American Tower, but the lease is still a current agreement. There's no change there. On May 20th, they sent us a letter asking if we would be interested in extending our lease for an additional 30 years. Just to be clear, this is from 2041 to 2071 when I celebrate my 108th birthday, with the same 15% escalation clause every 5 years. So the question we need to discuss tonight is, should we extend our lease to 2071? Let's talk about a few items. They came to us asking for this with the request. There was still 25 years left in a lease. And another call to American Tower to find out a few details, talking to another employee, not the leasing agent. They were surprised that that request was made because they said, we usually don't extend leases till they're in the last 5 years of a lease. So kind of an interesting piece. I just wonder if there's, well, that comment shouldn't be there, but there's some value about what they're not disclosing. Anyway, the leasing consultant from American Tower has called multiple times. She's obviously interested. I asked about negotiating a signing bonus, and she said she would see what we can get. She's obviously interested in pushing this along. The lease agreement has been reviewed by Rich Sack, who is familiar with the cell tower market, and basically said we have a pretty good deal. He reviewed it. He said basically the deal's a standard deal, but the 15% escalator is higher than what he's seen in almost any other contract. Rich recommended that we consider $30,000 upfront signing bonuses. He said it's a fair amount to ask when you're extending it for 30 years. You see what you can get. Ensure that the 15% escalator clause is still included. And also, it says you may want to incorporate language that allows the district to require the cell tower company to move the cell tower should you need that space at some point in the future. So if we extend the lease now, pros and cons, it may help the tower attract more companies to locate on our tower and increase our rent revenue. If we extend the lease, future co-locators may rent on our tower. If we wait, those co-locators may pick other locations, and we've lost out on the opportunity to rent to them. This will ensure revenue for many years into the future, and also may be a chance to negotiate a signing bonus now. One other issue, as I talked to the company late this evening, they did mention that if there are mergers within the industry, and say AT&T, our only locator on this tower, were to merge with another company and have a better location or a combination of locations, they don't need this location any longer, they could simply abandon it and our rental revenue would go away. However, with more locators and more longer lease time, it's more attractive to companies to say, look, we have that spot for 55 more years instead of 25 more years. If we do not extend the lease now, well, what are the upsides and downsides? We still have the current lease for 25 more years. It's not like we got to make a decision right now. If there is some value there, we should explore that more fully before extending the lease at the current rates. Maybe there's a rate increase we could talk about. No one is going to put another tower in the middle of our 108-acre site. We own that whole area. There's no one else going to put a competing tower in that area, so we do hold the cards when it comes to that. We may possibly need the site where the tower is located in 25 years and may not want the tower any longer, so we have to consider extending the lease, ties our hands to some effect, but it still ties our hands in that area. After considering all the different options here and the possibility of getting additional revenue, maybe a signing bonus, my recommendation to the board, kick this around and discuss it as much as you want, that as long as we can address our major concerns with contract language, I would recommend that we extend the lease. Get our chances of additional revenue and potentially additional locators, more revenue. It's not going to balance the budget. It's not going to make up 3.8 million, 3.6 million gone. It will make up something. It will help and maybe provides additional buses or additional textbooks. However, I would recommend moving slowly. Don't be in a hurry. Explore the value. And at this point, I would throw it out on the floor for discussion and questions. What's your opinion? Give me some direction you think where we should go.
It sounds like I think your conclusion's correct. There's some value, because why would they come so early? So I would explore the value, see what you can get. As long as we get maybe get the clause in that we can move it if necessary. I'll be 110 when the lease expires. So I was thinking maybe I would parachute off it as my 110th birthday, but so make sure it's still there. But and I mean, what do you think?
I sure won't be here, but I think you go for more than the 30 grand just up front as a bargaining position when you go in. I think it's a good thing to do. I don't know, I'm in that business, but I don't know what the future holds for the towers. But if we can lock something in and say go for a 50,000 signing bonus and see if they negotiate it down, that's fine, but I think that's a good thing to do, another revenue stream for us that we can count on. So I say go for it.
My only it's the language. We have now a 32-year mortgage on the high school with the work that we've done. If we extend it, what are we going to do for the next? I mean, God, I don't want to be around and have to pass a bond to get a new high school at that time frame, but we need to at least be able to have the language. If we need to move the tower, then we need to be able to move the tower. That's my only thing.
That's what he said.
Yeah, I mean, that just has to be a part of it, that's all.
Have we done any research to see what other towers are available in the city? What are we competing with? I mean, how?
No, I don't know what we're competing with right now, and I don't know what plans there are to put up additional towers. I mean, cell towers have a certain range to them. They obviously need one every so.
Well, I thought in the city they were putting some kind of towers like on poles on Pearl Road, like in front of Catan's.
short range.
So that doesn't
Yeah.
compete with
And-
any, that's not this at all.
Jane, I would tell you that the way the technology changes, as fast as it changes, and Richard backed me up on this, strike while the iron's hot.
Right.
Because in a year, the cell
That's what I'm
technology
thinking,
could be obsolete.
it's gonna pass us by, is what I'm,
Yeah,
point was, yeah.
yeah.
By extending the lease, we are more attractive for co-locators, and that may be part of the reason they're approaching us. I'm guessing, they won't tell us, but maybe there's somebody who wants to locate, but they want at least a 30 or 40-year deal, And, you know, maybe Verizon does one on that tower. They just need to be more comfortable with the lease terms. The longer our lease, maybe once I said, like I said, we're more attractive to companies, but there's another option for the cell tower. Should we need to sell future revenues, discount revenues, there's a potential, if a project comes up, we're looking for funding, we can sell those future revenues and get a lump sum cash up front. Granted, the total amount you get is less, you know, 45, 50% of maybe what future revenues are, maybe less than that. But
Okay.
Are you going to J.G. Wentworth?
that's basically the process. But you can get lump sum money now
For annuities.
for future revenues.
We don't need
But
to
if
do
we
that.
have a Verizon and maybe a T-Mobile on the line, on the tower, it may make it more attractive.
Okay, well, just, we pursue the extension, see if you can get a signing bonus, see if you can get the language we need, and just keep working through it. Don't be,
Okay.
there's no rush.
And obviously, any contract language has to come to the board for their review and approval at that point. I can't do that on my own. Just, now I have some direction on what to pursue. Thank you very much. I do have one more announcement. It's not on my agenda list tonight, but obviously, everybody knows we're closing Zellers. We have excess furniture, obsolete furniture and equipment. We also have a few buses that were not successful being passed by the state this year. So we're going to hold an auction starting August 1st, go through August 14th online, using Bus Movers and More, the same company we've used in the past. I'm going to take an ad out in the paper, be in the Post on the 1st and the 8th. We're going to post it on our website. We're going to also post it on Channel 22. But I just want people to know the schools are going to host we're going to hold an online auction with Bus Movers and More. If you're interested in some obsolete furniture and some excess equipment that we have at Zellers, we'll be selling those items and hope to clear out the building so we can repurpose the building. So just to give you an update, we have taken the best of the furniture we needed around the district and moved that into classrooms that say had 30-year-old furniture and brought the 30-year-old furniture back. That is the stuff for sale, not the newer stuff has been
So it's
used
vintage.
We're using the vintage
Very well
stuff,
said,
yes.
Shane.
But
That's very well said.
But
Gotta
our
market it the right
students
way.
and the taxpayers got the maximum value out of that. We're not selling off the newer stuff, we're selling off the older stuff. And that's my report for tonight, unless there's questions.
Mark, you have one more item on the next page.
Oh,
We have a gift.
I apologize. I normally don't have 7 items, or 3. Tonight, under business service, we also have gifts to recognize. The Strongsville Youth Commission donated $245 to Chapman Elementary School to be used to purchase technology items and/or apps for students with disabilities. And that does conclude my report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. With that, we'll move on to curriculum and talent development. We have a few items for your consideration. Number 1, Strongsville High School Boys and Girls Cross Country Team Camp. They will be traveling the first week of August to the Lakeside Historical Village in Lakeside, Ohio, and transportation will be provided by parents and cost paid by the participating students. Under number 2, we've got a trip for the Strongsville High School Girls Tennis Team. They're going to play in the go to Mason, Ohio for competitive match play, as well as the Western and Southern Pro Tennis Tournament the week of August 14th through 16th, that weekend. Again, expenses associated with the trip are paid by participating students through fundraising. And finally, number 3, a trip for our high school boys and girls cross country teams. They are going to travel to East Lansing, Michigan to participate in the Michigan State Spartan Invitational on September 18th. Transportation is via motor coach, and cost will be paid by students through funds from their annual fundraiser. And that concludes curriculum and talent development, unless there's questions. All right, moving on to pupil services. As we talked about, as Carl mentioned earlier, there are times when we need to provide services outside of our district, and these are agreements for 3 of those such programs. Number 1 is educational alternatives, which you can see in Exhibit H. Number 2 is our PEP, or Positive Education Program, through the Cuyahoga County ESC in Exhibit I. And then finally, ASG Education Services, which is more commonly known as the LEAP program, which is in Exhibit J. That concludes pupil services, unless there's any questions. I'm on a record pace.
You're on a record pace.
And then we come to human resources.
Oh.
All right, so for human resources, it's a busy time of the year for human resources, so we have a significant number of items for your consideration. First is resignations of leadership, as I've shared with some of our parents, and we'll share with all parents. Wish the best to Mike James, assistant principal at Center Middle School. He took a job as an assistant principal at Highland Local Schools at their middle school. And Mr. Dave Riley, principal at Albion Middle School, also resigned. He will be a high school principal outside of Bowling Green starting next year, so we wish them both well in their new ventures and new districts. We have resignations of some certificated staff, as well as resignations of a non-certificated supplemental. Under E2, we have appointments of certificated staff, and under, moving on that page, we have appointments of certificated leadership. And just to take a second to clarify some of the administrative changes. Obviously, throughout this summer, there has been a vast amount of changes in our administrative staffing. And again, putting our district in a good position for the future. With Mr. Riley's departure, we did hire Tom Karras, an interim principal. He was a long-term middle school principal for the Fairview Park district, who retired a few years ago from there, has helped us out in the past. But with the middle schools consolidating, Mr. Dietrich being the new principal of the Strongsville Middle School, when it combines, this allows us to hire an interim principal that will be with us for 1 year, and at the end of next school year, that contract will end, and we pay Mr. Karras a daily rate. That is a savings to the district because when we hire interims, we do not pay retirement, we do not pay health insurance, we just simply pay the daily rate. With that, it's a little later on in the agenda, but it'll note that Mr. Stacco has been named as the principal of both Drake Elementary and Whitney Elementary for next year. As Drake is closing, he will become the principal of Whitney officially in 2016-17. We thought it was in the best interest of our students to not have 3 principals in 3 years. So he is doing both of those duties, and we hired Jeff Martin, former center principal, Albion assistant principal, and special ed supervisor, to come in as an interim assistant elementary principal at Drake and Whitney to help out. Again, he will be there for 1 year to provide support to those schools and students. So the building is always administratively covered, and that is a 1-year contract. And in June of 2016, that contract will end. And moving on, I am going to go to the podium and ask Mr. Trujillo to join me over there. I don't think he realized it was going to be 8:30 before he got his turn tonight, but it is absolutely my privilege to share with you the recommendation of Andy Trujillo as our Director of Special Education for Strongsville City Schools. Prior to this, Andy has served as principal of Chapman Elementary for 8 years, and also he was Zeller's elementary principal for the previous 3 years. Prior to coming to Strongsville, Andy was an elementary assistant principal in Elyria and a 3rd and 4th grade teacher in Cleveland Heights. And here's something you probably didn't want me to mention, but I thought it was pretty cool.
Oh, no.
Andy, I didn't know this, was the head girls soccer coach for Cleveland Heights for 5 years, leading the Lady Tigers to a district championship and being named the Lake Erie League Coach of the Year during his tenure. And I'd just like to let you know, Andy, I Googled this to make sure it was true because I've known you for 10 years and I didn't know that. And there is a site that has it listed, and it says, if anybody knows the record of Mr. Trujillo when he was coach, please contact us. We want to know how he did. So I'll give you the site. You could check it out. But obviously, thrilled to have Andy on board in this new role. I've had the privilege of working with Andy for over 10 years as colleagues, as elementary principals, and as my past role as assistant superintendent. Honestly, he's a leader amongst leaders. He's a tireless worker and has a vision for the future, not only for the special education department, but our district. His true strength is fostering a positive culture, positive relationships, and with students, staff, and parents to assist in ensuring continued success for our district and, most importantly, our students with disabilities. You know, as I shared when we announced Jenny as her role for assistant superintendent, we are building a team for the future. We're getting the right people in the right positions, and Andy is that final piece of the puzzle. I hope it's the final piece of the puzzle because, man, it's been a summer. But he is truly the final piece of the puzzle for our district, and most importantly, the students that will serve and thrive under his leadership. So thrilled to have Andy on board. He, pending your approval, will officially start on Monday, and congratulations, Andy.
Thank you.
Yeah, just real quick, want to say that I'm privileged and honored and humbled to serve Strongsville community in this capacity. Like Mr. Ribas said, been here since 2004 as the principal of Zellers. Have great memories of being the principal of that school. And then in January of 2007, Mr. Gray, the superintendent, then moved me to Chapman in the middle of the school year. And that was it was quite a challenge at that time, being uprooted from one school and then go to another one in the middle of school. All the kids go away to winter break, come back, and they have a new principal. And so now here in 2015 to serve the community in this role, I'm very excited. There's a lot of challenges ahead, a lot of opportunities that lie ahead. And like Mr. Riva stated, so many opportunities. And earlier mentioned, about now an hour ago maybe, the great momentum that we have going in this district, and to be a part of that on the district leadership position is just it's just a thrill. So thank you once again.
Congratulations. Moving on, we also have Vicki Turner, Supervisor of Instructional Technology. We are changing her contract from a 215-day position to a 216-day contract. And Vicki will now oversee all of our technology department, and we'll see in a little bit. We've got some different title changes as we've done some reorganization. Moving on, we have appointment of non-certificated leadership. As I shared before, we've rearranged some of our staff, reduced some staff in the board office, and we'll have a part-time receptionist coming in about a week or so. On page 10, we've got appointments of certificated substitutes, and that goes through. In the bottom of page 11, we've got appointments of non-certificated substitutes. On page 12, we have appointments of certificated supplemental contracts that are prorated for some of our department chairs and other supplementals throughout the year. We did hire a new psychologist, and with that position, there's additional time as well as extended time for your consideration, as well as another non-certificated supplemental contract for 7th grade volleyball. As I shared with the board earlier, we are probably winter of last year, school year, we updated our non-certificated substitute rates. This is the last, we are asking you to consider a change to our certificated substitute rates. What we are doing, right now we pay $85 a day for our substitutes. We did a survey across all of the area districts. It was a good smattering of $85 to $90 to $95 a day. That's what our competition, I guess if you want to say it that way, is paying. What we've done is put in a system and recommending a system to retain our substitutes, to incentivize our subs to only sub with us. Because finding substitutes in 2015 is difficult. There's not the pool out there that there used to be. So what we're looking at is putting in this graduated rate that if you work for our district, doesn't matter if it's consecutive or day-to-day, days 1 to 40, you get that $85 a day, which is our current rate. However, if you work with us for $41 to $80 or 41 to 80 days, we'll increase that by 5. You make $90 a day. And if you work for us for 81 to 180, you get $95 per day. And as it says there, substitutes that work over 81 days in any year, you start at the higher rate the next year. So again, we broke down and looked at the data to see how many subs are working how many days, and we feel this is going to incentivize and ensure that when our teachers are out on professional development or sick leave, that we get highly qualified substitutes in place. So that's for your consideration there. Going on, I alluded to some of these before, changes in status for leadership titles. With Andy being recommended to leave Chapman, we are recommending that Jim Carpenter, principal of Whitney, become the principal of Chapman Elementary School. And as we talked about, Glenn Stack will be the principal of both Drake and Whitney. Changes in titles. Mark Donnelly, because of the move with Vicki Turner, we are going to change Mark's title from Director of Business Services and Technology to solely Director of Business Services, since technology will now be overseen completely by Vicki Turner. Also, Erin Green changing her title from Director of Curriculum and Talent Development simply to Director of Curriculum. Continuing on, we have changes in status for non-certificated staff. That's our internal staff that have moved to new jobs over the summer. On page 15, changes in status, non-certificated recalls from reduction in force. As you may remember from past board meetings, we did have to reduce 3 OPSI staff due to the closure of Zellers. We've called them all back fully. They all have retained either their previous jobs or gotten new jobs, so that's good news for those employees and for us as a district. We have a change in status. We had a teacher that originally we hired as part-time. Due to a resignation, they've moved to full-time for next year. On page 16, we have a stipend for a leadership responsibility to pay an additional amount to Mr. Stacco for being the principal of 2 buildings for next year. We have a stipend for a resident educator coordinator. Jameen oversees all of this is a state program that we have to run to mentor our new teachers. It's a very successful program, and that's a stipend that she receives for running that program. We have a stipend for Wilson Foundation's workshop. This is a reading program that provides targeted reading instructions to our students with reading difficulties. It's paid out of federal grant money for Mary Wolf. We have leaves for family medical for certificated, as well as a volunteer chaperone for your consideration. And then what we'll do, if you have your green sheets, we have an addendum. So on page 1 of the first page of the green sheet for the addendum, we have a resignation of a certificated supplemental contract. We have resignations for 2 of our non-certificated staff members. We have appointments for non-certificated staff. And then we've added some additional appointments for certificated subs and non-certificated subs, which goes to page 3. On page 4, we've got appointments of certificated supplemental contracts and non-certificated supplemental contracts for some of our fall sports and music program. Number 4, we have changes in status, more of our internal staff that have taken new jobs, as well as a stipend paid to one of our guidance counselors for 4 meetings she'll be attending and has attended over the summer for trauma training to provide services to our students with mental health needs. And that concludes human resources, unless there's any questions, as well as my report.
Tell me again what a faculty manager is?
Faculty manager is works with our athletic department. Site manager that helps the athletic director. Because of the number of events that we have in fall sports, it's not possible for one person to be at all of them. So it's a supplemental position where they oversee the game. They take care of the referees. They take care of the gate collection. They are the individual in charge should there need to be oversight or issues with fans or issues with collections. It's an additional support for our athletic events.
Okay, and it's half an FTE, so what does that equate to in money?
It depends on the percentage they're at. That is split between 2 people, so a half is about $2,500.
Okay, for their evenings?
Mm-hmm.
For all year or just football season?
Fall, there's faculty managers for fall, winter, and spring. There's different, for fall and winter, I believe there's 2 faculty managers that are permitted, and for spring, 1.
Okay.
I have a question. The 3 OPSI that personnel that we were able to bring back.
Yeah.
Was that due to retirements and/or transfers? We're not adding positions. We're just replacing people that have left the district.
Correct. It's
Okay.
replacing people that have left the district, and more specifically for these cases, it's people that held these jobs at the end of the school year that took other jobs and opened up some spots.
Trickle-down effect.
Yep,
But
domino effect.
But we're not adding personnel we're just providing an opportunity for these people that we riffed.
Correct.
Eliminated job to come back, okay?
No, we haven't added any OPSI positions this year.
Question for you on 8E3. How many, on average, daily basis do we have, how many subs are working in our district? I mean, we've got how many teachers, but on average, how many subs do you think we have in our district any day?
In our district, on an average day, we're running 60 to 65 subs in the district. But that's all told for all employee groups, that's just not teachers. So we have in our system where we track it, it's classified staff, certified staff all together. Cold and flu season, we are more around the 85 to 95 subs a day range.
Okay.
But we have to look at also, when you look at those numbers are a combination of out for illness, but it could also be running professional development in the district where we have asked teachers to go or to participate in something that we're presenting in the district.
Okay.
Other questions? All right, that concludes my report. Mr. Nasa?
Thank you very much. That gets us to somewhere.
Consent calendar.
Agenda, consent calendar. Where all items that have an asterisk are approved in one vote. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Jane. That Jane gives us the
Second.
motion. Duke has a second. Any discussion? Nope. Take roll, sir.
Mr. Grozen?
Yes.
Mrs. Ludwig?
Yes.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mr. Naso?
Yes,
Colonel Evans?
Yes.
motion passes. So that brings us to board policies. We've got a number of them here. I'm sure we've all read them, committed them to memory. It's the first reading. You'll have two more chances to reread them and make sure you're comfortable with them all. We do have I think there's a couple of things. One thing to note on here is the tobacco use, right? Those are all new as we go to a smoke-free environment and addresses. Richard, why don't you speak to this here?
Sure. We took a look at our tobacco use, and we've been a smoke-free environment for a number of years. But we kind of realized, and at Duke's prompting, we said we should follow the good example of the city and become a completely smoke-free campus. So we tied that up with these new policies. The reason they're repetitive is they apply to students, they apply to administrative, they apply to staff, and then they apply to the public. But once these policies are in place, we'll look at getting some signage around all our buildings, very similar to what the city has, and model after that. But again, it just takes it to the next step to make sure that everyone knows we're a tobacco-free campus. And then the other one I'll highlight that I think it's a new policy, and I think it's a great step forward, is our Bring Your Own Technology device. And we worked diligently, and it was, as far as policy is concerned, a fairly involved process and a slow process, but we're catching up to the rest of the world and making sure that our policy gives our teachers, gives our administrative the tools they need to keep children safe, but at the same time not be ridiculous and have rules that aren't in accordance with the modern life our kids are in. Having rules that say you can't have a watch or a telephone or what have you in this day and age is a little difficult. So we're really happy to bring that new policy forward, and I think it's going to be great at all levels, and there's protections in place for the elementary kids that are different than the high school kids, that acknowledges the difference in age and difference in responsibility. The majority of the other policies, those changes are based on requirements of law. And that's it.
Thank you. That brings us to Board of Education Other. Jane, Richard?
I have one. I just wanted to highlight
Thank you.
to parents and others in the audience that there is a sales tax holiday coming up in Ohio. It's part of the back-to-school sales or what have you. But from Friday, August 7th at 12:01 a.m. through Sunday, August 9th at 11:59 p.m., the following types of items are exempt from sales tax. Clothing priced at $75 per item or less, school supplies priced at $20 per item or less, and school instructional material priced at $20 per item or less. And that doesn't mean you can only buy $75 of clothes. It just means each pair of jeans or slacks or skirts have to be $75 or less. And that's it.
Good deal.
Couple things. First, I don't know any child at the high schools that wears slacks.
It was just encouragement.
Cameron, I have to tell you that my 9-year-old's really mad at you for making him go back to school in less than 3 weeks. And the Facilities Development Committee met yesterday on a variety of subjects. Our next meeting's on the 19th at Albion at 7 o'clock. We are naming 2 additional members to that committee, and forgive me, I don't know the second one, but I know that Mr. Harbert, our wonderful band director, was who was part of the facilities task force, then a part of our bond committee, and worked tirelessly going door to door and phone calls to help us get that money. We are going to name him as one of the new members of the Facilities Development Committee. And he thought he was going to leave our district and just retire and play golf or do whatever, but we pulled him back in.
Pulled him right in.
Exactly. So
Yep.
just want to make that official.
He looked well rested, though. That
Very
was
well
nice
rested.
meeting, yeah.
I'm jealous.
Seasoned citizen now.
Yes, exactly. Duke?
No.
Nope. I don't have anything. We have regular board meeting coming up on Thursday, August 6th, and another one on Thursday, August 20th, right here. And we do have a need for executive session tonight, I believe. I know we do.
So moved.
What topics we have?
Items kept confident, legal items kept confidential.
Okay.
I'll
Second.
yeah.
There you go.
Duke gave the motion, Jane gave us the second. Take a quick roll.
Mr. Miko?
Yes.
Mr. Naso?
Yes.
Colonel Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Grozen?
Yes.
Mrs. Ludwig?
Yes.
Excellent. We'll enter into executive session at 8:50. I do not believe we have any public business afterwards, so we will, that'll be it. And we'll talk quickly and end it by 9:30.